Okay, so I'm not super thrilled about the next thing we got to talk about today, but it's kind of insane, especially after the era of the BLM protests, where we've got all kinds of information about the ways that police will try to abuse your human rights. I hate to give you more of those human rights that they have recently been trying to abuse, but, you know, I guess we need to go ahead and talk about this one. I'll just bring up fan art real quick. This one's from Riddle of Lightning. It's basically how I feel right now. I am making me on a 3D printer, and it's all fucked. Meanwhile, I'm not making me on a 3D printer. I'm making Pokeballs on a 3D printer. Anyway, thank you very much, Riddle of Lightning, for the fan art that you've dropped here. I apologize. It is attached to psychological torture. Literally, psychological torture. So, Fontana has to pay nearly $900,000 for psychological torture that was inflicted by police to get a false confession. So, I'm going to be reading off of this while we do incursions here. Have fun with this particular one. So, it says here from The Sun, within hours after Thomas Perez Jr. called police to report his father missing, he found himself in a tiny interrogation room confronted by Fontana detectives determined to extract a confession from him that he had killed his dad. Perez had told police that his father, 71-year-old Thomas Perez Sr., had gone out for a walk with the family dog at about 10 p.m. on August 7th, 2018. The dog returned within minutes without Perez's father. Investigators didn't believe the story, and over the next 17 hours, they grilled him to get to the truth. All right. Interesting and completely fucked already. You'd figure that when you try to actually okay, there we go. You'd think that when people actually try to get help from the police would be helpful. Like, that's the least you would expect, is that the people whose job it is to make sure that you are safe, right, would actually do that. Now, you and I both know that the actual job of the police officers, generally speaking, is to be beholden to capital and capital interests, not necessarily you and me. But let's go ahead and read on. So, looking at this, according to court records, detectives told Perez that his father was dead, that they had recovered his body, and it now wore a toe tag in the morgue. They said they had evidence that Perez killed his father and that he should just admit it. That's what the records show. Okay. That's fucked up. Really, really, really fucked up. Like this, oh god, this cloud of terribleness that these guys have here. I hate everything about these enemies. They are not balanced well at all. Anyway, but Perez insisted that he didn't remember killing anyone, but detectives allegedly told him that the human mind often tries to suppress troubling memories. At one point during the interrogation, investigators even threatened to have his pet Labrador Retriever, Margosha, euthanized as a stray. What the fuck? So, I would never, ever suggest anybody engage in violence against a police officer. I would never suggest that. That would be an ill-advised thing for me as a content creator to suggest another human being do. However, I would be very hard-pressed not to want to get violent with a police officer if they threatened Growlithe or Chip. It would be very, very, very difficult for me not to at least think about it a little bit. You know, for personal reasons. For personal reasons. So, after they brought the dog into the room so he could say goodbye, they said, okay, your dog's now gone. Forget about it. How can you sit there? How can you sit there and say you don't know what happened? And your dog is sitting there looking at you, knowing you killed your dad. Look at your dog. She knows. Because she was walking through all the blood. That's fucked up. That is super fucked up. And not fair to anybody in any scenario whatsoever to force on them. Finally, curling up with the dog on the floor, Perez broke down and confessed. He said he stabbed his father multiple times with a pair of scissors during an altercation in which his father hit Perez over the head with a beer bottle. Perez was so distraught that he even tried to hang himself with the drawstring from his shorts after being left alone in the interrogation room. Perez was arrested, handcuffed, and transported to a mental hospital for 72-hour observation. But later that day, the truth derailed detectives' theory and their prized confession because Perez's father wasn't dead. He wasn't even missing. Thomas Sr. was at Los Angeles International Airport waiting for a flight to see his daughter in Northern California, but police didn't immediately tell Perez. Oh. That is nightmarishly fucked up. So, the dude is alive the entire time, and police officers are just like, that's inconvenient. We just want to get a confession out of this guy. We just want to torture this guy. Make his life miserable. Tell him we're going to kill his dog. That's what we want to do. That's far more important than inconvenient things like the truth. You know, the truth of the dad being alive. Didn't that poor guy have to go to the pound himself to save his dog? I don't know, because we're going to find out as we go further in this escapade of nightmares, we'll go ahead and call it, because that's what it is. That is exactly what this is. Mentally torturing a false confession out of Tom Perez, concealing him from the fact that his father was alive and well, confining him in a psych ward because they themselves made him suicidal. In my 40 years of suing the police, I have never seen that level of deliberate cruelty by the police, said Jerry Staring, who was Perez's attorney in Newport Beach. Yeah, that is a therapy for life situation. I agree with that entirely, Red Joker. This is a person whose entire existence has been fully and totally derailed because of cruelty from other human beings who, may I remind you, their stated job is to serve and protect him. Their job is supposed to be to make him safe. He, as a citizen, is supposed to be able to look at a police officer and go, yes, I will confide in you because you are my friend. That is the job of an officer. But instead, we have officers who think their job is to engage in psychological torture that would probably be better suited for Guantanamo Bay. Then there's a $900,000 settlement. Steering filed a civil rights lawsuit in federal court against the city of Fontana, alleging that police psychologically tortured Perez and coerced a false confession without first determining that the father had actually been slain. And the suit was recently settled for nearly $900,000. Perez agreed to the settlement rather than take the case to trial out of concern that a jury award could be overturned on appeal on grounds of qualified immunity for the police. I'm going to be honest. Qualified immunity is not a thing that police should have. I believe if you are going to be the arbitrator of the law, you should have to conform to the law. Just saying. Like, outside of very specific scenarios, like the police are allowed to speed in the middle of a chase, like, outside of stuff like that, I'm sorry, you should be held accountable when your gun shoots somebody, when you bulldoze somebody's house, which was a fucking thing that happened. When you do anything that harms civilians, that should be enough to not only revoke your badge, but prove that qualified immunity is bullshit. Said smart play on his part in an unjust system. Yeah, this is basically a thing that somebody would have to do if if their lawyer recognized that they have a leg to stand on with the settlement, but it's harder to actually get precedent here. The unfortunate thing is we could have had a case where qualified immunity would have been further scrutinized by the police, or by the judges, but because of this issue, because of the stupid idea of the qualified immunity being there in the first fucking place, we don't get that particular trial. We get a settlement because that's easier to do. And I don't blame Perez here. He's the victim here. I blame a corrupt system that didn't have his best interests in heart in the first place. So don't fuck the qualified immunity. Given the rate of people fucked over by it, qualified immunity probably has STDs. Yeah, probably. Fontana police didn't return an email from the Sun seeking comment. 3 of the involved officers remain employed with the department. 1 other officer has retired. Yeah, no, none of those officers should be employed with the department anymore. There is no world in which any of these people should have jobs with the police department. Not a single person who was involved in getting this false confession. And this happened 6 years ago. This happened a long fucking time ago. And yet, they still have their jobs. They've been able to do more shit for the last 6 years. Because who the fuck's gonna stop them? In court, documents and depositions, police say they had a reason to believe Perez was lying. You know, despite having no evidence. First, they noted he seemed distracted and unconcerned during the 9/11 call. Have you ever considered he might have just been autistic? Just saying. There are people who have plenty of reasons to act in a variety of ways in a situation like this. Officers responded to the call and noted the father's cell phone and wallet were still at home, which was in disarray. Police saw the mess of a sign of a struggle, but said Perez was renovating the house and had argued with his father about it. Additionally, a police dog sniffed out the scent of a corpse in the father's bedroom, and there were small bloodstains in the house. Staring later would say the bloodstains were caused by the father's finger prick diabetes tests. How do you fuck that up? How do you fuck that up right there? We found traces of blood. My father's a diabetic. But we found traces. Yeah, he's got a finger prick test. You prick. Perez's lawsuit detectives also refused for several hours to retrieve his medication for high blood pressure, asthma, depression, and stress. Oh, that's fun. So he needed medications to literally survive, and yet police were just like, nah, you don't need those. We need to get a confession out of you more than you need this stuff that is required for your survival. Oh, that's so cool. That's so neat, guys. Isn't that neat?
Go in peace.
Isn't that so neat that the police can just deny you medications you need to survive because they want to bully you? Doesn't that make you feel so great? Doesn't that make you feel wonderful and included and just so happy and warm inside? When blood pressure medication, that denial of which could actually kill you, a police officer can just go, nah, he doesn't need it. Not today. It's a day that ends in Y. That makes it a special day, where the rules are different. For me, but, you know, not for you. Perez became so distraught that he began pulling out his hair, hitting himself, making anguished noises, tearing off his shirt while police encouraged him to confess, according to a summary of the case written by U.S. District Court Judge Dolly Gee. Stoff is saying keep animals off of workforces. No, I disagree with that. There are plenty of use cases for animals in workforces, not only in the police work, which obviously they were misused here, but I can advocate for their use in, say, airports as a way to make sure that nothing illegitimate is being transported on an airplane. They're actually infinitely faster than any other method we have right now, and they make train rides far more functional for everybody, or a plane ride's far more functional for everybody. Seeing eye dogs as well, perfectly reasonable. Also, there are plenty of medical applications where a dog is one of the easiest ways we have to sniff out certain illnesses. I'm sorry, I will never advocate for the keep animals off of workforces idea, because animals being part of the workforce in some way, shape, or form is quite literally one of the things that makes us human. Us employing dogs into work and labor for years has been what has allowed us to function and thrive. Horses as well, and other, like, you name an animal for the most part that we've domesticated, we have found a working use for it. Red Jugger says, I'd rather trust bees for testing drugs or explosives than dogs. I'd rather trust this dragon not to touch me. There are more accurate tools that have been bee cartridges where bees are trained to extend their tongue when they smell something. I mean, cool. Bees are still animals, though. So there you go. But in my experience, the only time I've enjoyed my time at an airport was when they used a dog and people traveled in pairs and got sniffed by the dog, as opposed to any of the other methods that we have used that are ridiculously slow and make going through the TSA an absolute nightmare and a half. Moving on with the story, Perez became so distraught he started pulling out his hair, hitting himself, making anguished noises, and tearing out his shirt while police encouraged him to confess, according to a summary of the case written by U.S. District Court Judge Dolly Gee. He was so deprived, mentally ill, and significantly undergoing symptoms of withdrawal from his psychiatric medications. At that point, during the investigation, investigators drove Perez to get coffee and then to some housing tracts where he had been looking to buy. Detectives berated Perez, insisting that he did not need his medication and that they knew he killed his father, according to the case summary. So the police are literally sitting there going, we're the medical professionals, not you. That's fucked up. It's completely fucked up. I don't think any of that should be legal. One of the investigators says, when can you take us to show us where Daddy is? He can't, because he didn't fucking know. He called you because he didn't know, you dumbasses. Later during the interview, the detectives told Perez that his father's body had been found already. So they just fucking lied. Which, from what I understand, is a perfectly viable strategy when getting a confession. You're allowed to lie. You don't have to be truthful. You don't have to be an upstanding citizen. You don't have to be any kind of positive influence. You can just be evil. Okay. Asked in a deposition about his line of questioning, one of the detectives said, I believe that at the time, if we told him we had located the body, then maybe he would give us more information about what had occurred. My guy, if you had located the body, why would you be asking him to show you where Daddy is? Like, for what purpose would you be asking other than you not knowing? I'm sorry, these people are stupid. These investigators who get paid more than I'm paid to live are absolute idiots. Police in court records insisted Perez was voluntarily undergoing questioning and was free to go at any time. Yeah, you're always free to go at any time, but if you are being pressured, it can feel like you're not free to go at any time. Duh. Then circumstances did, in fact, suggest that Perez was not free to leave. Oh, God, imagine that. So strange. She also noted that there was no legitimate government interest that would justify treating Perez in this manner while he was in medical distress. And then, of course, we get to the fun part of the story where the father turned up alive. Perez's nightmare ended shortly after police got a phone call from his sister who said their father was alive and well. He had actually walked to the train station in Fontana and rode the line to Los Angeles to visit a relative, and then took the bus to visit a female friend, Steering said. Perez Sr. later went to the airport to await a flight to Oakland to visit his daughter. Police picked up the father at the airport and brought him to the Fontana station. But the investigation didn't stop there. Oh, that's fucking weird. Detectives obtained a warrant to search Perez's house again for evidence that he had assaulted an unknown victim. Oh, that's cool. That's neat. That's my favorite. We couldn't find the person we blamed you for killing, so we've made up another person on the fly. Surely you killed this hypothetical person, whom we can't name because they don't exist. Surely we've got what we need here, right? Perez was not released until after the end of the 3-day psychological observation period. He then retrieved his dog from Riverside County Animal Services, tracking her down through an implanted chip. The dude had to find his dog at the pound. His dog could have been killed in that time. His dog could have been adopted out in that time. He could have lost his animal at that point. No. At that point in the... I'm an obstinate motherfucker. I would be having conversations with my lawyer about, hey, so can we work in part of the deal? I get $900,000, and also I get the ability to pistol whip the officer who detained me. And only the judge gets to determine when I am supposed to stop. I know that that would never happen, and that would be just horribly inhumane, but I'ma think it. I would definitely think it. While Guy concluded that Fontana detectives had sufficient reason to believe an offense had been committed, she criticized officers for their interrogation tactics. A reasonable juror would conclude that the detectives inflicted unconstitutional psychological torture to Perez, G wrote in her summary judgment. Their tactics indisputably led to Perez's subjective confusion and disorientation, to the point where he falsely confessed to killing his father and then tried to take his own life. And that is entirely fucked up. But remember, the police are allowed to do this stuff, because remember, every single officer involved in this scenario never had justice done to them. They didn't get punished. They didn't have anything bad happen. They just got told that was a bad thing to do, and we had to pay money about it. But they're still working. They still have their jobs. Now, while I am the type of person who believes in redemption, even for some of the worst people in the world, I also believe that when it comes to a job as delicate as police work, once you have proven that you are incapable of being responsible as a police officer, that's it. That should be your strike. I 100% believe that being a police officer should be as much of a revolving door as McDonald's is, where the only people who are allowed to stay on the force are the people with effectively squeaky clean records. Bro, thank you for resubscribing. And again, this is a job where you are legally allowed, in many cases, to shoot civilians. So I don't believe I'm being too harsh on the officers here. I believe I'm being entirely fair. You're allowed to make mistakes, but if the mistakes are as of such gravity as this one, that should be it. You have your one strike, you fucked up, be done. That you wouldn't trust these officers to get a burger order right either? Well, yeah, but at least at that point, they can't kill you with a burger order. Unless you're allergic. Then in which case, they might be able to. I don't know. I have gotten an onion order wrong before, so who knows? But still, just one more reason why I completely understand people who fall hard in line with the ACAB mentality. I may not agree with it entirely myself, but I get it. And every single time I read through a story like this, I get it more and more. Agamotto says, I think you're being too lenient on them. I mean, what else do you think you should do besides strip their ability to be menaces to society away from them? Any other punishment you think of at that point would start leaning into you being as bad. Tyrannobaster says incidents like this are why people say ACAB. Yeah. It's very hard to have any level of trust in an organization when this is the shit they do. Jimanian says, public shaming always hits innocent people. An internal database keeping them from ever being hired as cops would be better. And you know what? That's fair. The one union I believe should be abolished is gone? No. Yes. That in this case, yes. Tails says, time in prison. You said it yourself, sir. This is more in line of Gitmo. The thing is, I don't think the prison system fixes anything. I'd basically be going, hey, your punishment is being in a broken system that will do nothing to actually positively affect the situation. Like, at that point, I'm basically being spiteful. And I understand I'm the same person that said, pistol whip the officer involved. I recognize I am that person. Said prisons are adult timeout. They're far worse than adult timeout, though. Sakura says, it's the system we have. I want a better system like Sweden's. I would like a better system, too. The system we have is broken and corrupt and awful. As someone who's in college for criminal justice, I constantly hear my teachers complaining about the negative views of cops. One ironically said that body cameras are an overreach. No. No, there is no part of a cop's job that should be secret. All of it should be admissible in court. So they're all ex or current cops? Ah, so they're back in my dayers. Back in my day, we didn't have body cams. Yeah, well, back in your day, we also hadn't quite had the Black Panthers yet. But why did they have to get formed in the first place? Oh, right! Because people back in your day beat black people! That's probably a reason why you have body cams! Funnily enough, the most moral of them is also the oldest one. The one who's seen enough shit and learned enough lessons, I guess. Ugh. Back in your day, there were Rodney King riots. Sit your ass down. But with all that said, let me know what you think in the comment section below. This shit's depressing. I'm ending this video. Insert ended video tagline here. Hey, I just quickly want to give a thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who keep this show running. YouTube and Twitch are a pretty bumpy ride at the best of times, and the stability a Patreon provides me is worth more than I can say here. I'd also like to thank each and every one of my $20 and up patrons here, and they would be Red Joker, Blitzkrieg, Cameron, Dren, Jemshin, Smiling DM, Poundini, Mabbity Babbity, Naomi, Isaac, Nixie-chan, the Oberon team, Agamotto, Jordan, Ravi, Giuni, Kiratorian, Prisma, all of you, I'm not saying that part, and Starlight. And finally, thank you to everyone else that helps keep this channel alive. While you're here, why not check out another video? And thank you for watching.